I chose to give everything that I had when playing for these teams. And then not being able to be supported by the fraternity that I gave my all to is hurtful.
For Leonard, a former NFL defensive tackle, this is personal. Months after an ABC News investigation examined allegations of racial bias in the NFL's concussion settlement program, Lewis and his wife Lacey are demanding answers.
They're making money off the backs of our husbands and our fathers and our brothers.
I understand that it's a business, but it hurts. It hurts.
The Leonards are joining a growing chorus of black former NFL players and their families speaking out about the protocols used to determine compensation for some head injuries on the field, like Kevin Henry and Najee Davenport, who spoke to Nightline earlier this year about their lawsuit against the NFL.
I'm looked at differently, and it pisses me off.
That's literally the definition of systematic racism with this race norm and stuff.
At the center of the firestorm is a controversial practice known as race norming, which is coming under increased scrutiny. Critics say it's discriminatory as it's being used in the NFL concussion settlement program because it assumes black players start at a lower cognitive level than white ones, making it harder for black players to prove enough damage to qualify for payouts.
Intentionally going about making sure that there's two set of metrics used for black players than white players is insulting.
Amid mounting pressure, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell faced questions from reporters ahead of this year's Super Bowl.
Are you guys looking into this? I know a report also surfaced on ABC that some doctors actually fear discrimination is taking place.
We'll continue to see if there are changes that need to be made, but those will be determined by the court.
Then, in March, in a surprise move, the federal judge presiding over the settlement ordered the NFL to reopen negotiations with the class of former players to address concerns about race norming. Hours before our story went to air, in a statement to ABC News, the NFL pledged to eliminate race norming from the program, saying they've assembled experts to identify alternative testing techniques. Attorney Chris Seeger is representing the former players. He's the same man who negotiated the original settlement. But he's now under fire himself from several outraged players and their families.
I'm really sorry that any client of mine in this program has been made to feel that way. That was a big mistake. It was a failure of the system.
Now, in an exclusive interview with ABC News, Seeger is making a shocking admission.
I was wrong.
After years of controversy, in 2013, the NFL and thousands of retired football players came to a landmark agreement. Hundreds of millions of dollars have already been paid out to more than 1,000 players suffering from the lingering effects of head injuries. Seeger was its chief architect and its biggest cheerleader.
You're not going to hear me try to claim that it's perfect. It's the result of a litigation, and nothing that comes out of a litigation is perfect, but it's good.
They were tough negotiations. Probably the one case in my career where there was a lot of storming out of the room, yelling and screaming.
And now, 8 years later, Seeger and the NFL are back in top secret negotiations. Where do those negotiations stand?
I'm on top of this, and I'm going to eliminate race norming from the settlement. So if I can't do it by agreement, I'm going to go to court, and we'll do it that way. And in addition to that, I need to conduct an investigation, which I'm in the process of doing. And if that results in me having to score every single claim again, especially where race norming was applied, I will fight to have that done.
We're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars, maybe more, that the NFL might have to pay out if you look back and you look at all the people that maybe should have received compensation but didn't because of this issue. Mm-hmm. Do you think the NFL is likely to go for that?
The ability to pay is there. There's no question about it. We've got 32 billionaires there. They got plenty of money.
So for former black players and their wives and their families who have felt discriminated against, what argument do you make to them as to why you are the best person to represent them in this process?
I'm fully cognizant of this country's history, of what has happened to black people in this country. I can't say I'm walking in somebody else's shoes, but I'm not oblivious to it. This has to get fixed. This is deeper than just the NFL concussion settlement.
Hanging in the balance are families like the Leonards.
At 315 for Leonard?
This doctor's appointment is one of about 100 that Lewis, at 36 years old, says he has to go to every year.
Hello.
Today, he and his wife Lacey are seeing his primary care physician after a hospital stay for a kidney infection.
You have to tell people, hey man, I got chronic kidney disease.
Chronic kidney disease.
It's just one of many ailments Lewis lives with. But what's worse, the Leonards say, are the injuries you can't see. Cognitive damage that affects Lewis's memory and mood, leading the couple to divorce at one point.
I started seeing a lot of personality changes. There was a lot of things that back then I didn't realize was even attributed to what he was dealing with neurocognitively, which what I know now really affected our marriage.
The two eventually reconciled, but day-to-day life is still a struggle.
I dealt with a lot of different things: lack of sleep, impulsive behavior, just doing things and not really knowing why.
In 2017, Lewis was evaluated by 2 clinicians to see if he was eligible for compensation through the NFL's concussion settlement program. Both found that Lewis, at 33 years old, had moderate dementia, and a settlement administrator approved him for close to a $2 million payout.
It really broke me down. That's the first time that I really understood I had something going on mentally.
But the NFL appealed, claiming, among other things, the testing protocols that were used were patently inconsistent with the program's guidelines. The NFL recommends clinicians adjust test scores for factors like age, gender, education, and race, also known as race norming.
How did it make you feel to see the NFL appealing that, saying, well, maybe the right standards weren't applied?
It hurts because I know what I deal with.
It's sad. Let's be clear. Who is really keeping the NFL dollars in? It's these Black players. It's 70% Black. So to make it harder for these men to receive the benefits that they so rightfully deserve is really disappointing and extremely sad.
Some doctors use race to make assumptions about a patient's background, supposedly helping them make better diagnoses. But the practice is coming under increasing scrutiny from critics who believe it can lead to discrimination. The league says that doctors were supposed to use it at their own discretion on a case-by-case basis, that it's recommended and not required. But when one of Lewis's clinicians did not adjust his scores to account for race, the league objected.
I just wondered how many other players have had the same experience. And unfortunately, the NFL hasn't come clean or come forth with who actually has been given awards.
What's your biggest concern as you move forward with your case?
Well, our case was denied. So I guess my only concern is that people would be held accountable for what they're doing to these players.
Oh, man.
I went from being, full-time working mom to having to reduce my hours at work because I was finding myself really needing to be there at the appointment so that I can, have a better understanding of what Lewis is going through. And I think sometimes their underlying issues are left unheard.
Lacey has joined a sisterhood of wives who support each other while caring for their husbands. Roxanne Gordon brought these women together, fueled in part by her own frustrations, after the NFL appealed the claim award for her husband, Amon Gordon, a former defensive end. I think anyone watching today would wonder, why are you here and not your husband's?
Having traumatic brain injury from repeated head injury alone, coping just through the day is difficult enough. To have them sit and regurgitate this and talk about this, it's just, for some of our husbands, it's almost impossible.
I think the public has this image of NFL players, they think of it as being glamorous. What would you say to that?
Oh, I would definitely say, don't believe everything you see. When they come home to us battered and bruised, we're the ones taking care of them.
Understand that there is another layer to this entertainment that you perceive.
The wives are taking aim not only at the NFL, but also at Chris Seeger, whose firm received more than $50 million in legal fees.
We all feel that he has really sold our families out. And so we would like him removed as counsel and have an impartial group of class counsel seated in his stead.
One of the wives, Amy Lewis, even started an online petition, which not only calls for an end to race norming, but also calls for Seeger's removal. It's received more than 50,000 signatures. On this day, she and her husband, former Washington running back Ken Jenkins, joined by Brooke and her husband Clarence Vaughn, a former Washington strong safety, are delivering that petition to the federal judge overseeing the case to keep the public pressure on the court and on Seeger.
We first need to get Chris Seeger thrown out on his ear.
I'm looking, this is this petition. We request that you remove Chris Seeger as the player's attorney of record. Does that concern you, especially at a time where you're now charged with trying to fix this issue?
I care about my clients. I have a lot more happy clients than unhappy clients in this settlement, and I don't know anybody who clicked yes on that petition, or if I really want to spend a lot of my time dealing with an online petition, Ryan.
You don't feel this is representative of the players you represent?
Not at all. Not only do I not feel it, I know it's not. I know it's not. It's not representative of the players. It's not representative of my position. If I was wrong and their claim was downscored because of race norming, it will get rescored and they will get their money. So I'm the guy fixing it.
When we come back, Chris Seeger answering his critics, admitting he was wrong when it comes to race norming.
I didn't have a full appreciation of the scope of the problem.
But Seeger claims he's not the only one responsible.
Do I think they were wrong to do it? 110% they were wrong.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.